The chamber froze the instant Jasmine Crockett slammed a thick folder onto the desk. Papers rattled, microphones hissed, and every camera swung toward her. She didn't pause, didn't breathe. Her voice sliced straight through the noise. Enough of the whispers. Enough of the games. Ivanka Trump's secret deals with Moscow are here, in my hand, signed and sealed. Gasps spread like fire across the room. Some shouted in disbelief, others leaned forward, hungry for the next line. Crockett held the folder high, her eyes burning, refusing to flinch. While you smiled on stages and promised transparency, you were cutting side deals with Russian banks, transfers coded under shells, agreements with front companies. You thought this would never see the light of day? The audience erupted instantly. Half the chamber roared approval, pounding their desks and chanting her name. The other half shouted back, calling it a lie, a smear, a witch hunt. The clash of voices merged into chaos, a storm that shook the hall. Crockett pointed straight at Ivanka, her tone unyielding. This isn't speculation, this isn't gossip. This is paper, ink, and your name. And the American people deserve to know. The camera zoomed in, catching Ivanka's frozen expression, lips pressed tight, eyes darting as if searching for an exit. A senator whispered to a colleague, "This just detonated the whole hearing." The uproar refused to calm, chanting, gasping, cell phones flashing as aides rushed clips online. Within 30 seconds, hashtags were already trending. The spark had been lit, and Crockett, standing tall, didn't let go of the silence between shouts. She leaned forward, steady, and dropped one final hammer. You can deny me, Ivanka, but you cannot deny this. The hall shook again. Gasps, screams, applause, a storm too big to contain. Crockett didn't wait for the storm to subside. She tore open the folder, yanking out a set of stapled pages, her hand steady as the microphone strained to catch every syllable. These aren't rumors. These aren't secondhand notes. These are signed agreements, contracts linking Ivanka Trump to Moscow-based conglomerates hidden behind shell corporations. She raised the first sheet so the cameras could focus. Flashbulbs went wild. The bold Cyrillic header screamed across every TV screen. Crockett's finger jabbed the signature line. Your name, Ivanka. Not a staffer, not an advisor, you. On the dotted line. Payments routed through Cyprus, then funneled into property investments in New York. Dates match your trips. Codes match the wire transfers. This is not coincidence. The chamber broke again, some leaping to their feet, shouting, "Expose her!" while others bellowed, "Fraud! Fabrication!" Reporters scribbled, phones lit up, and the tension cracked the air like glass. Crockett slammed down the next page. Company 1, Ostrovia Holdings, linked directly to Kremlin financiers. Company 2, Novatech International, a front with documented ties to sanctioned oligarchs. Each line leads back to you, Ivanka. You didn't stumble into this, you orchestrated it. A collective gasp swept the room. Even members of the press corps, hardened by scandal, blinked at the names. Crockett's voice grew sharper, cutting off every attempt to interrupt. You thought this trail would stay buried, hidden in offshore accounts and quiet corridors, but the trail is right here, and tonight the American people see it. She snapped the folder shut, letting the echo hang heavy. The silence that followed wasn't relief, it was anticipation, a room teetering on the edge of explosion, and then it came. Chants, stomps, cries for accountability. The audience had erupted again, louder, angrier, hungrier. The proof wasn't abstract anymore, it was paper, ink, and Ivanka's name burned across it. Ivanka gripped the microphone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her voice, usually calm and polished, came out sharp, almost trembling with rage. This is absurd! These so-called documents are nothing but forged trash! Lies crafted by political enemies! This entire stunt is beneath the dignity of Congress! She shook her head, forcing a faint smile as if mocking the accusation. But her eyes betrayed the crack in her composure. Cameras zoomed in. The flicker of panic was unmistakable. These signatures, fabricated, these companies. I have never heard of them. Moscow? Really? This is desperation politics at its ugliest. You're dragging my family's name through mud because you've got nothing real. The chamber burst into chaos again. Her allies rose from their seats, pounding the desk, yelling shame and witch hunt. But the opposition shouted louder, resign. Liar! The roar was deafening, a civil war inside the walls. Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned across the desk, her voice steady, almost cutting. Say it again. Look into that camera and tell the American people you've never signed a deal with Moscow. Go on, Ivanka, swear it! Ivanka froze. The crowd sensed it, the hesitation, the pause too long. Boos erupted, drowning her silence. She snapped back, slamming her palm on the desk. This is harassment, political theater. I will not dignify this smear campaign with further answers. But the room had already turned. The audience split into dueling chants, half screaming her name, half screaming guilty. The clash reverberated like a stadium, not a chamber of government. A reporter whispered into a hot mic, "This is spiraling out of control. She looks cornered." The clip went live instantly, feeding the frenzy online. Ivanka's face, once a mask of poise, now flickered between fury and fear. Every gesture was caught, dissected, broadcast in real time. Crockett leaned back, letting the chaos speak for itself. The louder you scream, the deeper the truth cuts. The hall thundered again, chaos that could not be put back in the bottle. The uproar inside the chamber didn't stay trapped within those walls. Within minutes, raw clips flooded Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. A single shaky 30-second video of Crockett slamming the folder hit 500,000 views before she even left the podium. Headlines flashed across every network. CNN blasted, "Ivanka cornered on Moscow deals." Fox countered with, "Democrats stage circus." MSNBC ran the clip on a loop, the chyron reading, "Crockett's bombshell rocks Capitol." In the streets, cafe screens replayed the footage. Radios picked up the chants from the hearing. Local anchors broke into regular programming with urgent updates. It wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was the story consuming every feed, every station, every conversation. Hashtags exploded. Asheksan, Ivanka Moscow, Za ha Crockett exposes, Za secret deals. TikTok teens synced the clip to music. Instagram Reels stitched Ivanka's frozen reaction into parodies, and political commentators live-streamed frantic breakdowns. Phones buzzed in Washington and far beyond. Advisors whispered in hallways, senators scrambled for statements. In Moscow, aides placed midnight calls to Washington lobbyists nervous about the fallout. A reporter tweeted, "White House blindsided, scrambling to craft a response." Crockett's voice, clipped from the broadcast, "This is paper, ink, and your name," became the viral soundbite of the night. Even without edits, the raw fury carried more power than any polished ad. The hearing was no longer a local spectacle. It had gone global. And Ivanka, once the picture of control, was trending for all the wrong reasons. The chamber itself vibrated with the knowledge of what was happening outside. Every phone in the audience glowed with fresh notifications. It wasn't just political theater anymore. It was war in real time, with millions of spectators screaming through their screens. And the storm was only gathering strength. The hearing adjourned in chaos, but the real war shifted behind closed doors. In the marble corridors outside the chamber, aides whispered frantically into phones, darting in and out of side rooms like ghosts carrying secrets. Ivanka walked briskly, flanked by two advisors. Her face was set in stone, but her hand gripped her phone like a lifeline. The screen lit up again and again. Private numbers, Russian country codes, names she couldn't ignore. She answered one in a hushed tone, stepping into a corner. "You must contain this," the voice demanded, thick with a Moscow accent. "If these papers stay in the news cycle, deals unravel, promises collapse." "Do you understand the risk?" Ivanka clenched her jaw. "I'll handle it. I always do." But even as she spoke, another text arrived from an American senator. "If you don't kill this story, you drag us all down with you." The pressure was suffocating, allies turning into threats, enemies circling closer. Meanwhile, Crockett wasn't celebrating. She sat in a cramped office, lit only by the glow of a laptop, scrolling through a flood of messages. Some were praise. Veterans thanking her for exposing corruption, union leaders promising support. Others were darker. Anonymous emails warning, "Back off or you'll regret it." A knock on the door broke her focus. A retired Marine, broad-shouldered and weathered, stepped in unannounced. "Don't stop," he said simply. "We've fought harder battles for less. The country needs this truth." He placed a folder of his own on her desk, testimonies from workers cheated in Ivanka's business ventures. Crockett looked up, startled. "Why me? Why now?" The veteran shrugged. "Because you're the only one who didn't flinch." She sat back, exhausted but resolute. The war wasn't just in the chamber anymore. It was spilling into alliances she hadn't expected, into threats she couldn't ignore. Back in Ivanka's hotel suite, a final call came through. This time, the voice wasn't Russian, but American, an old ally, calm, deliberate, and chilling. "Silence this, Ivanka, or you won't just lose a hearing. You'll lose everything." Her hands trembled for the first time that night. The chamber reconvened under a haze of tension so thick it silenced even the usual chatter. Reporters clutched their recorders, lawmakers leaned forward, and the nation's eyes locked onto one stage. Jasmine Crockett rose slowly, the infamous folder in her hands once again. She didn't shout. She didn't rush. Her voice came low, steady, the kind that forces a room to lean in. "Last time, you said these documents were fake. You called them smears. But today, Ivanka, I bring the one thing you cannot deny." She opened the folder, pulling out a single sheet encased in a clear sleeve. Cameras zoomed. The screen above the chamber projected the unmistakable signature, sharp and fluent, right beside the name of a Moscow conglomerate. "This is your contract. This is your signature, not a copy, not a rumor. The original, obtained legally, verified independently, cross-checked by forensic analysts. Ivanka Trump, you signed this deal with Moscow while standing on American soil." The chamber exploded. Shouts of "guilty" collided with cries of "fake." Staffers scrambled, security shifted uneasily, and phones across the nation lit up with the breaking image. Ivanka's signature, crystal clear, burned into history. Ivanka lurched forward, her face drained of color. "That is not... I never..." she stammered, her voice cracking under the weight of 1,000 lenses. Her allies tried to interrupt, demanding to adjourn, but the roar drowned them out. Crockett pressed on, relentless. "You told this country you stood for integrity. You told working families you fought for their future, but you gambled with Moscow behind closed doors. You sold their trust for profit. And now, they see you for what you are." Reporters shouted over one another, desperate to catch every syllable. Anchors cut live, declaring, "The chamber has erupted. Ivanka cornered by evidence." Clips spread at light speed, the signature plastered across every timeline. A senator whispered harshly to a colleague, "This isn't survivable. She's finished." Crockett didn't let the room breathe. She drove the dagger in deeper. "The choice is simple. Deny again or own it. But know this, you can't outrun the truth." Ivanka sat back, eyes glassy, lips parted but voiceless. Her silence screamed louder than any denial. The audience roared, the kind of roar that marks the end of an era. Some cheered, some jeered, but all knew the same thing. A line had been crossed, and nothing would return to the way it was. Crockett closed the folder slowly, letting the sound echo like a gavel. "The people will decide what happens next. But today, the truth won." The cameras cut, but the image, Ivanka's frozen face, the signature glowing on the projector, and the chamber erupting, was already immortal. And beyond the walls, the storm only grew.